1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
At 28 minutes to 10, we continue now talking about democracy and, of course, elections, regional organizations and how they impact the strength of that architecture. We talk about Human Rights Watch saying the decision by Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to withdraw from the International Criminal Court will jeopardize access to justice for victims of atrocity crimes, putting all civilians at greater risk. This after the military leaders of the three Sahel countries signed a joint statement announcing their country's withdrawal from the ICC. They announced the withdrawal during a period of turmoil in the Sahel region. Increasingly repressive military juntas in the three countries, it's been said, have been engaged in armed conflicts with Islamist armed groups. To speak further on this, we are on the line now to Louis Mudge, Central Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening. How are you?
Well, thanks. So, Louis, just talk to us about the withdrawal. There has been criticism of it. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are saying, in fact, it's because of the behavior of the ICC that it seems biased against Africa, that they believe that they can exert national justice. Is this something that you think that they're capable of?
Well, I mean, there's certainly, it depends on, it's not a question of capabilities. They're certainly capable of rendering justice. All three of these countries, Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger, have capable and competent judges and magistrates and lawyers. It's more of a question of political will, and it's a question of independence of the judiciary. And the fact is they're rolling out a sort of tired old trope, which is that the ICC is biased against Africa. To simply look for a means of skirting their responsibilities vis-a-vis the Rome Statute and the ICC itself. I think it's important to note that whilst this is regrettable, it's not surprising. All three of these countries pulled out of the regional bloc ECOWAS earlier this year in January, and that itself, that regional bloc, has a West African regional court, which they've also pulled out of. So it's not surprising to see these three countries in a bloc continue to move against regional and international institutions.
Okay, so Louis, then, besides what we've already highlighted, that it's going to deny people who face atrocity crimes, the right to access international law, to hold the leaders to account. Looking at the Sahel region at the moment and the complexity of the conflicts, particularly in all three countries, given the fact that there is a cross-border insurgencies, how would this work? You say it's not that they don't have the capacity. How would they navigate this, though, if they were to be effective?
Look, I think this is more of a reflection of the fact that the three of these countries, these are three countries which have had military juntas take over. All three of these countries underwent coup d'etats, and the respective leaders of these new countries and their executive committees clearly have demonstrated that they want to resolve things in terms of the battlefield and not to have anything adjudicated in the courts. There are armed Islamists, notably an Al-Qaeda spinoff known as Janim, and there's ISIS remnants, ISIS Sahel remnants operating particularly in Mali and Burkina Faso. And these groups are undoubtedly committing serious crimes against civilians. But I think the reason why we're seeing them pull out of the ICC and of ECOWAS is because of what their own soldiers are doing to civilians as well. So these are Malian and Burkina Faso, primarily, to a lesser extent Nigerian soldiers, what they're doing to their own civilian population, particularly targeting Fulani ethnic group and the killing of civilians. So I don't think we're going to see any advances in terms of judicial initiatives in these three countries now that they've pulled out of the ICC. Whilst they might be using language saying we're perfectly capable of doing this ourselves, I think what we'll be seeing is a continuing shrinking of an independent judiciary in these three countries. We won't see any accountability for national troops for the crimes that have been committed against particularly the Fulani, but other civilians. And I think as a spin-off, we'll continue to see a shrinking of the media space in these three countries and of the civil society space in these three countries, which we've already been noting since the juntas really took power. Journalists are less and less open to speak the truth about what's happening, and civil society groups are less and less engaged because it's a risk.
But could this also be an opportunity for the ICC, because part of its mandate is to help capacitate the judicial infrastructure in the countries that are signatory to it? So obviously we speak about the judiciary in these countries. I want to look at what bar are we springboarding off, because when there is a military junta in place, the freedom which the judiciary, including the media, enjoys is, shrinks quite considerably. So if we as African nations are not to throw our hands up in the air, including ECOWAS, what way can the ICC be appealed to say, look, as part of your mandate, how can you best lend a hand in ensuring that there is some sort of judicial infrastructure in place?
Yeah, and I think you raise. I think what the points you're raising and the criticisms that are inherently tied to it, I think, are completely valid. The ICC historically has been seen this court that sort of sweeps in, arrests a few people, and then they're tried in the Netherlands, very, very far away from the countries that are affected. It's a sort of rendering of justice at such a distance that it ceases to become impactful for the people who are most affected by the violence. I completely agree with that. The ICC has taken note of that, and they have sought to change their ways. I think more recently you see a real degree of collaboration in the Central African Republic between the International Criminal Court and a special hybrid mechanism in the Central African Republic and the national courts. And you're seeing right now, as crimes are unfolding in the Congo, you're seeing the ICC engaging in a much more meaningful way with the national judiciaries. The fact is, though, with regards to these three countries, I think we have to be realistic. There's not much collaboration to be done with Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso when they withdraw from the Rome Statute in such an acrimonious way. I don't envision there to be much capacity sharing. There might certainly be some information sharing, especially in Mali, with regards to existing trials that are going on, existing cases. There's still one Janim leader who is indicted by the ICC who's at large. So there might be some sharing of information in that regard once they actually do withdraw from the ICC. It's important to note they only announced this withdrawal. The actual withdrawal takes place in a year. But I think we have to be realistic. I don't think there's going to be there's not going to be a formal handover. There's not going to be a situation whereby the Mali and Nigerian and Burkina Faso courts are made stronger by this. Regrettably, I think that's regrettably. I think there's lessons learned both in the way that these countries withdrew from the Rome Statute, but also in the way the court that was established itself. And how it needs to adapt and be a court that can greater attune itself and make itself available to local needs.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and your insights, Lewis Mudge, Central Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. Brings the time to exactly 20 minutes to 10.